to Lunar Fracture Lesson 3. So in this session, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to import a weapon so that our player will have a weapon that he can use, and we're going to use it. We're actually going to use it as a reference to create our own weapon completely from scratch. Then we're going to go into our paint program GIMP, and we're going to paint out what we want our science fiction-y weapon to look like. And then we're going to go into Blender and actually build the thing in 3D. So, the first thing we want to do is go to Assets, Import New Asset, and you'll see in your, this is the file that I sent out, Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and go into the Game Dev folder, and you'll see the Unity package that I sent out this week. Should be stored somewhere on your computer. Just click Open and click Import, and it will import a folder called My Weapons. I want to take a look at the weapon that's in there, but let's do this in a separate scene. So let's do File, New Scene, and let's go to My Weapons, and let's just drag this thing out here. The reason that this is pink is because it's saying it can't find the texture that it needs, but that's fine. We'll just give it a texture. So drag it out here, and then click on TS Weapons Textures, and drag it straight onto the model, and it's nice and textured. Okay, so if I come over here and look at this thing, you can see that we've got an M4 with a grenade launcher on it, and I'm going to use this as the basis for our science fiction weapon to give us sort of the right scale. So what I need then is a good picture of this thing so that I can look at it in GIMP clearly. So I'm going to go here, and I'm gonna, if you're ever like lost inside Unity and you can't find the game object you're looking for, you can always click on it in the hierarchy and press F, and it will bring it to the center of the hierarchy. So I'm going to add a plane in the background to give me a good white background here. So 3D object. Plane, you can pick plane or quad, it doesn't matter. I'm going to select the directional light because it's now outside the frame of what my scene view is looking at. And then I'm going to expand this window out a little bit so I can get a good picture of my of the gun. And then I'm going to take a screenshot of this and bring it into GIMP. And that's where we'll start painting our weapon. So we're going to grab a copy of this and take it into GIMP, where we'll start painting our new blaster. Just screenshotting this, and File, New. Okay, Control V, Control Shift N. I had to turn off the the mouse and keyboard record option, the display option thing, because the tool was actually interfering with GIMP. So it is off for now, but GIMP doesn't, I don't use a lot of shortcuts, and if I do, I'm in the habit of saying them out loud anyway. When we get into Blender, it's going to be more, it's going to be where you're going to need to see what keys I'm pressing a lot, because I don't use a lot of shortcuts in GIMP, I don't think. I'm going to right click here and delete layer, and go to Image, Fit Canvas to Layers. So now I have a good, clean, crisp copy of my existing weapon, and I want to create a Neutron Blaster over top of it. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to make sure I hit black and white here, grab my brush, and I'm going to pick a hard brush and give it a size of, let's say, 15 pixels. Okay, so here we go. So I know that I want to have a sort of a casing over it. If you hold Control and Shift together, you'll get straight lines in GIMP. So I'm going to make a sort of a casing to go around my gun here. Let's do this and do this. We want to keep it about the same height as the existing weapon. And I'm just going to actually do this here and do that. And then I'm going to grab the eraser here, left click here, shift, left click, shift control, left click there. Now that's all the same height and a little more squared off. I'm going to fill that in with black. I'm going to click Fill Similar Colors and do that. Yeah. Gives me a little bit of a border, but I can fix that by painting around it. Alright. So that's going to be the basic shape of our gun. I want it to have, let's do a new layer. This layer is going to be under the top layer, so I can draw a, we want to have a neutron core that's sort of visible to the player, and that'll be a fun effect we're going to play with. Do that here, and we'll grab the lighter shade of this and just do some nice stripes here. This doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to help us visualize what we're trying to get. We'll paint it in more earnest later. That looks fine. Okay, so we want to also create a barrel, and I want the barrel to be a bit beefier than our current barrel. And again, I'm painting on a layer underneath this layer, so you can't see that it's all wobbly. It doesn't matter. Let's go here, get this out of the way, so you can see what I'm doing. Shift Control here. Do. And I actually am now realizing that I want this whole thing to be set back a little bit because I don't want it to be much longer than the existing weapon either. So I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to grab the square selection tool, box select around this side of the image, hit Control X and Control V, and then I'm going to click the move tool and move it, and make sure I don't move it vertically as well, because I just want to move it back horizontally. I'm going to hold down the control key and only let me move left and right without going vertical. So I'm going to move it back a good bit. That's fine. Okay, and then if I just click off anywhere, it'll just leave it there, and my cowling, the framework of the gun is still intact. Okay, so I'm going to come back down here to the layer I was working on. I'm going to grab the gun barrel and hit Control X and Control V and move it back as well. And again, I'm doing that same trick of holding down the control key so I move flat. Yeah, that looks good. There, looks good. Okay, and then just click off anywhere. And come back to paint with my paintbrush. And I'm going to switch to a lighter shade of gray. And I'm going to make some little change here. And I want to come down here. And I'm holding down Control and Shift to get nice straight lines. And I'm going to do O to select this. And click back to my paintbrush. There we go. I want that line to be straighter than it is. Hold down Shift and Control, make sure I have a nice straight line. Okay, then I'm going to make a box for the cartridge down here so that the player will be able to reload, or maybe not. I don't know if we're going to need him to reload, but let's put a power pack on here anyway, just so we have one. I'm going to create a new layer, so I'm now going another layer down. This is so I can do things behind the layer I'm working on. New layer, click OK, and I'm going to grab another shade of gray. And do this. And I'm just going to put in a couple of little details here by zooming way in, just to make it look a little bit better. I'm going to bring this down to bring my size down to about 4, and I'm going to go back to darker shades of gray and just make some lines here. Whoop. This is on this layer, is where I want to be. And again, I'm just holding down Shift Control to get nice straight lines. Now, if I was really working on this as a concept art package, I would make sure that I was doing all the changes on the correct layer, because now if I turn off the gun cartridge, the details are just floating in space. But it doesn't matter. We're just trying to do something quick so we can get going. Let's do a little bit lighter there, and do a little thing on the inside here. And oops, I accidentally rotated it. So just set that back to 0 by clicking there. And let's do this. And I'm going to do a new layer above my gun casing. Just again to put some details in here. They don't really need to do anything. I'm just messing around. So I can have something a little less boring looking. Okay, so now we're starting to get something that sort of looks like, it's starting to look like a nice nuclear weapon. I'm going to switch my brush to the softer brush, and change this to about a 10. And I'm going to make my little, click on this lower layer, and I'm going to make my coils look like they're glowing a little bit. My neutron core. Because that's sort of the plan for this, is we want this to look like it's got a glowy bit. And we're going to do some cool effects with that, I hope. Okay, so as far as the handle and trigger go, we want to leave those more or less the way that they're shaped, but I'm going to go ahead and box them out anyway, so that we can remember where they are. You don't have to leave them exactly. Oh, I need to switch back to my hard brush. And 10 is fine. Oh, it's 15. That's what we were working with earlier. You don't need to make them fit exactly the same. So we're going to make this kick out a little bit, and maybe do a little bit of action like this. Yeah. There it's a little bit differentiated, and it doesn't have to be. But we want it to be more or less the same dimensions because we know it already fits in the character's hand without a lot of extra effort. I did that again. Okay. So, and I don't have a grenade launcher on our weapon, but if I turn off the lower layer, I've got a gun that looks starting to, it's getting there. I do want to give it a stock, and we might put a little something down here later. But let's give it a stock. I'm gonna go grab a dark layer of gray, and I want it to have a more science fiction-y looking stock. So I'm gonna do something that looks a little like this. Yeah, and I'm going to fill that in. Very slowly. Okay, and again, it's about the same dimensions as the existing stock, so I know it's going to fit with the character pretty well. And I'm going to do some details on that. So let me go here, make it a little darker, and scale my brush down to a 10. I don't know why it's going up when I'm pressing the down arrow. There we go. And I'm just adding some lines to make it look a little less static. And a little less, I don't know, boring. And I'm going to take this down to 5. And I'm going to go to a much lighter gray and add some like highlight sort of things here. Great. Now this isn't perfect, but it's a good start for what we're gonna want to build. So let's go to, and notice that I didn't put a trigger in here. We might want to add one at some point, but for the level of detail of our game, remember we're going to be zoomed out pretty far. That's not a good example of that at all. I'll do file save to save this scene as in the scenes folder as gun test or weapons work. Sure. And I'm going to click back to my other scene, and which is called sample scene, which is not a good name either. Click on my player, press F, and remember, if we press play, at this scale, we're just not going to see a trigger in the weapon. So it's not something a detail we need to build. Okay, so go back to GIMP. I'm going to create a final new layer here. I'm going to click on the lowest layer and do layer, new layer, and this time I'm going to change it from fill with transparency to fill with white. And that is what my gun is going to look like in the game. So that's cool. Okay, so I'm going to do file, save as, and I want to go to my game dev folder and go to Lunar 03, assets, and I want to create a new folder in here. Well, actually, let's put it in my weapons folder. And we'll just save it in there. And that will save the XCF file, which is the GIMP file. We will also save this, export this as a PNG so that we can use it as reference in GIMP, which is the whole point of this exercise. So we'll call this Neutron Blaster .png. Export. Yay. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's flip over to Blender and let's start building this thing. So now I'm going to turn my keys back on, keystrokes back on. If it gets annoying and stops behaving, I will I'll turn it back off and just narrate my keystrokes. Okay, so I'm in Blender. I have a brand new file. I haven't changed or touched anything. I've left clicked, so I moved my cursor around, but other than that, nothing has changed. I'm going to do AA, and I'm going to actually I want to keep the cube. So let's grab the light and hold down Shift and right click and select the camera and delete those two because we don't need them for what we're doing. But we want to start with the cube. Remember that we can select the cube two ways. We can right click it when we're in object mode, or we can select it here. And if you press tab, it will go into edit mode. And edit's where we can see all the nice vertices because we have vertex select chosen rather than edge select or face select. Edge select will allow us to select just the nice edges, and the face select will allow us to select each of these faces, which will have a dot in the middle of it to show you where the face is. We want to be in vertex select. We want to bring in our reference, and I'm going to bring in two references. I'm actually going to bring in the weapon itself from that asset package, and I'm also going to bring in the picture that we just created. So to bring those in, I'm going to go switch back to object mode. I'm going to go to File, Import FBX, navigate to my game dev folder, go to Lunar 03, Assets, My Weapons, and there's the FBX. And you can see it if I hide the cube. You can see that it's right there. It's not oriented the way we want to orient our weapon, and its origin is way over here, which is not what we want. So we're going to fix that and get it oriented the way we want. So I'm going to left click to select the weapon, and I'm going to do Shift Control Alt C, and I'm going to do origin to geometry. So that moves the origin, which is the pivot point for this weapon, back to the center of the geometry for the weapon, which is what I want. And then if I come here to position, you'll see that it's actually not setting at the origin now because we moved the it's not setting at the origin in 3D space, so now I've moved it back so it's centered. And I'm going to want to rotate it, and since I want it to be oriented the way I want it to be oriented, I want it to be pointing forward and with the handle down. So I'm going to rotate it on the y-axis 90 degrees, and rotate it on the x-axis negative 90 degrees. Perfect. Now it's facing forward, and it's down. The pivot point still isn't exactly where I want it to be because I don't want the gun to want to rotate from the center of the geometry. So I'm going to press 3 to go to my side view and press 5 to make sure that I'm in my orthographic view. So I don't want things to get smaller the farther they are in the distance. I don't want to have a perspective view. I want to have an orthographic view so I can see things very clearly. Press Tab to go into edit mode, and I can press A to select everything, and I'm going to press G, which will allow me to just drag things up. And I want the guns to be oriented so that the pivot point is at the handle. So that when I rotate, it will rotate around the handle because that's how typically how the character's going to interact with it. But I'm not going to use that geometry. I'm going to use my cube geometry, and I'm just going to use this as reference for some scale for some things. But what I also need to do is show my background image. So I'm going to click on Background Images, and I'm going to click Add Image, and I'm going to click Open, and I'm going to go to Game Dev, Lunar Fracture 03, Assets, My Weapons, and Neutron Blaster.png. Now, it is way too big. So we're just going to scale this down. This is your scale right here. I'm just going to keep scaling it down until it's close to where we want it to be. You can drag this. That's probably pretty close. And then I want to drag it over in the X direction a little bit. There we go. So we're getting pretty close to where it was. Let's pull it in front. We can actually let's make this negative 0.25. Let's make it negative 0.28. Negative 0.27 looks like it's going to be our winner. And then I want it to go up a little bit. So I'm going to drag this up. Whoop, that's too much. 0.1. And you'll see that it's overlaying our weapon pretty well. I need it to actually be forward a little bit. Because I know I want the gun barrel to be right at the end of the existing gun barrel. So, look. Also, you can only see this if you're in the right view or one of the orthographic views. So, right now you can see it in all of them. So when I press 3, I can see it, but if I hold my middle mouse wheel and drag, the image disappears. So I'm pressing 3 again so I can go back to this view, and holding down Shift and the middle mouse button to drag around in the scene. And I just want this to be okay. If I move it over, that's too much. So let's do negative 0.3, negative 0.31, 1, negative 0.31. Okay, that's pretty close because it's at the right height. Because remember, we use this. This is a guide. The stock is in the right place, the barrel's in the right place, the clip is in the right place, and the handle is in the right place. So that's pretty good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a reference to build our weapon. And what we're going to do is we're going to build it in the pieces. So we're going to make the outer casing first, and then the handle, the cartridge and the cartridge holder, the barrel, the neutron core, and the stock. So let's start by building out the casing. And we'll do that by turning back on our cube. And I want to select our cube. And I want to go into edit mode. Okay, so let's start by scaling this down. So I'm going to press S and just scale down until it more or less looks like I'm about the right shape and size of the back part of my casing. I'm going to press scale, and I'm going to bring it down. And what we're doing right now is we're just blocking out the gun case here, gun casing. Okay, but you'll notice that the bottom is not angled. The bottom is not angled the way we want it to be. And if you find it distracting to have the machine gun there, you can just right-click and turn it off. If you find it distracting to have the other art there, then I don't know what to do because you need it for reference. I'm going to press Z here so that I'm now going into transparent mode. Let me turn the weapon back on. You can see the original M4 is no longer skinned. And this allows us to, when we select things, it will select the vertex in the front and the vertex in the back. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's press Z to make it solid, and let's right click on a vertex. Notice that if I spin around, you can see that I've just selected the front vertex because that's what I clicked on. But if I press 3 and press A to clear all my selections, press Z to make it transparent, and then press B and drag, I've now selected both vertices, which is what I want. So press 3 to go back into my scene, and I'm just going to move this up in the vertical and bring it back in the horizontal back down here. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to press B and bring it down. And I don't want to go forward because I want it to keep this nice straight vertical here. So I'm going to come to this corner and do B and select all the vertices and move it back. And you can leave it angled a little bit. Okay. So you can see that we're actually building out the box. Now we need to do the next part of the gun. So let's press 3. And the next part is lower. So I want to create now I want to create another set of edges and vertices in my scene so that I can, or on my object, so that I can just extrude out this next part. So I'm going to do Control R, which will give me this nice pink line. And that says I'm going to create an edge all the way around your box at that line. So I'm going to create this pink line. If you're too far away from your object or not somewhere where it can make a cut, there won't be any pink lines. So just do it until you're about in the middle. Left click once, and I want to drag it up to where I want it to actually be, and I will left click again. And that is pretty good. Okay, and if you look, it's drawn the edges all the way around our box, which is what we want. Press 3 again. Okay, so now we want to extrude forward. So what we're going to do is we can click on, hold down Shift and right click on all of these vertices. 3, and we're going to extrude, and we're going to tap Y to go in the Y direction to force it to go straight. Beautiful. And then that gives us our middle bit. Nice. If you're wondering about the width, we're going to deal with that in just a second. And then I'm going to hit Extrude Y again, and I'm going to come forward until I'm about at the front where I need to be. And then I'm going to press A to clear my selections, press B, drag, and bring that forward on the Y-axis until I am lined up with where I want to be here. And then I'm going to grab, whoa, I didn't grab everything because I'm not in 3D mode. So let me grab this again, and I'm going to do S, Y, 0. That at least brings them back so that they're lined up with each other. Press 3 again, and then I've got them both selected now, so I'll drag forward, and now it should look better. Always want to take a second and look around at your object to make sure you're doing what you think you're doing. Got these two vertices selected. I'm going to select these two by holding down Shift and right-clicking. Go back to 3 so I can see my game object. And I'm going to go, whoop, Control Z. I'm going to press E to extrude and go up. And then I'm going to select just my front 2 vertices, 3, and I'm going to drag them forward until I have a nice straight line here. Okay, so that's the housing for our gun built. Nice. But it's probably too wide, and what I mean by that is let's turn on our M4. If you look at it from the top, you can see it's much, much, much wider than the M4. So we're going to scale it down so it's not quite so wide. So I'm going to press A. So I've got selected every vertex, and I'm going to press Z so it's clear and I can see the gun model underneath it. And I'm just going to press X. I only want to scale in the X direction because I know that from the side it looks great. It's just the width is wrong. And I drag my cursor in until it's about the width of the gun. Cool. Okay, so now I have a gun casing, or gun, I don't know what you call it, the gun housing part. So press 3 to go back to our gun. Let's turn our other model off, and we'll call this gun base, since I keep using different terms for it. Now we want to create a new object that's going to be our neutron core. That's going to be it's going to be a glowy bit. We're going to do some special effects on in the game. So let's create that. So let's go out into object mode. You can also just click Tab, and it's still got our gun base selected. So I'm going to do Add Mesh cube. I'm going to start with the cube again. The cube is now way over there. Just select the cube and go up to the transform location, 0, tab 0, tab 0. Now it's back where we want it to be. Okay, now press Z. The cube is gigantic, but that's fine. Press tab to go into edit mode for this cube, and I'm going to press Z so I can see what I'm doing. Press 3, and I want to scale this down just until it's, you know, a reasonable size. Bring it over here, bring it up here, and I want it to overlap under the gun case a little bit because the model is actually going to be hidden underneath it. So I'm going to press A to clear my selection. I'm going to press B to select all my bottom vertices. See, I've selected all 4 of the vertices here at the bottom. Press 3 again, and I'm going to drag that up because I don't want the neutron core to be much larger than the case that it's sitting in. Okay, it's too wide, and I want it to be a little bit narrower than the gun case, so I'm going to press A to select everything. And I'm just going to press S, and I'm going to press X to scale in the X direction. I'm just going to scale it in until it's a little bit narrower than our gun case. Cool. That is all we're going to do for that. So that's now done. Now let's go back to object mode by pressing tab. Do object, add mesh cube. My cube has jumped off to where my cursor is, so I've now moved it back to the center. We're going to make the casing to hold the gun cartridge, and we need to label this one as neutron core, and we need to label this one as cartridge holder. Okay. We've got the cartridge holder selected, so I'm going to press tab to go to edit mode, and I'm going to do scale. And I'm going to drag it over, and I'm going to drag it up, and then I'm going to press A to deselect everything, press B to select all my all the vertices here on the right, and just drag it straight back. And I do want to have it have a little bit of a fold in here, so I'm going to press A to clear my selections, press Control R to get a pink line, and I'm going to drag that down to about here. And then I'm going to come in here, B, select all my bottom vertices, and I'm going to do scale 0.8 there. And literally just hit S.8 on my number pad, and it scaled it to 8/10 of what it should be. And again, it's too wide, so I'm going to press A to select everything, and I'm going to do scale, and whoop, I'm going to grab everything, and I'm going to press, go back, make sure everything's still the right dimensions. There we go. I'm going to press scale. I'm going to press the X button, so I'm only scaling in the X direction. I think that looks like it's going to be okay. The gun cartridge holder is now way too high, so I'm just going to grab these top 4 vertices and drag them down. And I'm going to press 3 to go back to my view, make sure I'm still well within the gun casing. Okay. Okay, now we're going to create the cartridge itself. So we're going to do what we always do. We're going to go to tab to go back to the object mode, add mesh cube, set it back to 0, 0, 0. And then I'm going to press tab to go to edit mode. I'm going to scale it down. Press 3 to go into my orthographic view, and I'm going to pull this here and press B to select just these edges, drag to select, and I'm going to press, let's go a little farther, yeah, and I'm going to press A to clear my selection, press B, and drag to select all of your bottom vertices, press 3 to get back to your orthographic view, and I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and again, I want it to be a little bit rounded at the bottom, so I can press Control R to get my pink line, drag that down after I left click to select it, and then select my vertices here at the bottom by pressing B, drag and clicking, scale 0.8. So, okay, it's a little bit wider than our cartridge holder, and that's not ideal. So let's grab everything here, AA, scale X, and we want to scale it down a little bit so that it will fit into the cartridge holder neatly. I press Z to make sure it looks right, and I actually think I have it too far forward because of the way my concept art was done. So if I look at 3, yeah, my concept art's a little bit off, so I'm going to move it a little bit back so that it's more centered in the actual geometry. So now it has, yeah, that's better. Okay, so it doesn't match our concept art exactly, but it's going to look fine. Okay. So we've got, let's get out of here. We've got our gun case, we've got a cartridge holder, we've got the cartridge itself, we need the gun barrel and the stock, and we'll be done with this model. So press 3. We also need to do the handle. So let's go ahead and do the handle now. So let's do tab to go to object mode, add mesh cube, and tab to go to edit mode and scale it down, and drag it over, and 3. And we want this to be set at 0, 0, 0, so we can know we're starting in the right place. Drag it back here. It's still not set in the right place. Why is that not happening? Oh, because I had it on. Sorry, I had it on the on global settings. I need to have it on local settings. So let's go back to the object and set the object to 0, 0, 0. There. Now it's where it's supposed to be. And tab. Oh. What happened? Let's press tab to go to edit mode. There we go. And we're going to bring it back. And press 1. Press 3. Oh, the picture shows in any orthographic view, so even if I look down from the top, the picture shows. If I look at it from the front, the picture shows. To make that stop happening, because I only want to see it when I'm in my side view, so I can make sure I'm working in the right space, you can change it from all views to right, which is where we want it. So now if I press 1, you won't see it. If I press 3, you will, which is what I want. Okay, so I'm going to scale this, and I'm in edit mode. I'm going to press scale. I'm going to drag it up. And our handle's got some funky geometry, so I'm going to put it about there. And let's scale it up a little bit more. Okay. And I'm going to hit Control R to give us a pink line that's a seam there. And then I'm going to press, see, it's all the way around. 3. Press A to clear my selection. Press Z to make sure I'm in my wireframe mode so I can select everything. Press B and drag across this vertex here. And I'm going to bring it over and up so that it lines up with our concept art. The front part of it's fine. Let's press A to clear our selection. B, left click and drag this up. And I'm going to drag this actually back so that it lines up with the handle. And then I'm going to press A to clear my selection, press B, drag this down so it lines up with the bottom part of the trigger guard. And then I'm going to press A, B, press B, left click and drag this up so it lines up with our handle nicely. And I want these points to all be more or less flat, so I'm going to do B, drag, and that selects all of my points on that inside that selection box. And I'm going to do S, Z, 0, meaning make it flat with respect to the Z axis. Okay, now I'm going to keep extruding along the handle, and it just goes in the Z axis unless you tell it otherwise, but let's just go ahead and do that, and then we'll move it manually in a second. So I'm going to extract down to about here, and then I'm going to drag back because there's a little bit of kickback in the handle. And then I'm going to do extrude again, and I'm going to go bring that over here, and then I'm going to click A to clear my selections, click B to select everything, drag, move this up and back, and click B to select all my bottom vertices again, 3, and extrude, and yep, and then I'm going to click A to clear my selection, B to drag. As you might imagine, I do the A-B selection drag trick a lot. And then A-B drag, and then I'm going to click extrude, and then let's scale this down. Scale 0.8. You don't always have to scale things at 0.8. I just find it to be a nice ratio. So I'm going to grab B here and drag this down a little bit. Okay, so yeah, okay. Then I'm going to select everything and I'm going to scale it, but I want to turn on my my other weapon so I get the handle width correct, because it's going to need to fit into our player's hand. So I'm going to press S, I'm going to press X, so I'm only scaling in the X direction. I'm going to press Z here so I can see what I'm doing. I've scaled it in a little bit too much, so I'm going to press SX again, and I'm just going to drag out. So it's really close to what the original handle was. Cool. 10, let's go back to 3. Let's turn off my M4 here. Let's go back to edit mode by pressing tab. 3. Okay. Press Z to go into wireframe. Press A to clear all my selections. B, let's click and drag. Click E to extrude. And we actually want this to go up because we're trying to make our trigger guard here. And that's actually going to work pretty well. But I want to make this last little bit here. So I'm going to do that by pressing A to clear our selection, hitting Control R, and dragging that line after I left click over here. And what that does is it will give me a seam that I can easily extrude from to get the trigger guard where I want it to be. So I'm going to press A to clear my selection, B, drag and click, and yeah, press 3, and we'll click extrude. It will go straight up, and that's fine. And then we can just drag it over by clicking on the green arrow. Okay, so now my handle and trigger guard are in place. Let's move on to the stock. So press 3, tab to go to object mode, add mesh cube. Make sure that its transform globally is set to 0, tab 0, tab 0, and then tab select it, get into edit mode. I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to press G to move it over, and I'm going to press A, B, left click drag down, and I actually want this to be fit my geometry better, so let's click A, B, let's drag this back a little bit, and A, B, left click and drag, there we go. Okay, A, B, let's do our next bit, and we're going to do E to extrude, and we want to go out to where our next little angle is, and it's more or less there. A, B, left click to grab these two corners, and I'm going to drag this down. A, B, and we're going to extrude, and then I'm going to go to the next bend and do A, B again, and drag this straight down. And then extrude the next bit, which is going to be about to here. We're getting near the end of the object. B, drag this down, and grab the whole back face and extrude out until we get to the end of our thing here. I'm going to go A, B, left click and drag, bring that down, maybe bring it back in some. And we want to have this little kick out here. So let's do Control R. And that's unfortunately going to give us a lot more polygons just for the sake of having this little kick out here. But it's the neatest way to do it. So let's just do that, and let's drag it down. And then we're going to go to grab these 4 vertices. I can shift collect, or I can do the A-B trick when I'm in mode A, B, drag the box select, and that's the same thing, just selects those 4 vertices. 3, and I'm going to do extrude, and then I'm going to zoom in with my mouse wheel, and A, B, just grab these bottom ones, move them over and up, and grab this, A, B, and bring it down. It is kind of a triangle, and we're trying to keep it in a quad space, so we're making a weird little thing. But that's okay. It'll look fine. 3. Okay, let's tab out of this. This is my stock. Let's tab back into object mode. Let's get out of my thing, press Z. Our gun is coming together. We're almost done. All we have left to do is the barrel. This is my handle. And this is my cartridge. Okay. Okay. Press 3. Okay. And now we want to do another object, but this time we want to do a cylinder. This is the one time we're going to deviate from our quads a little bit. Is the end of our cylinder we're going to let just be a solid polygon. So we're going to do add mesh cylinder. It's way too big and in the wrong place. For vertices, we don't need 32 vertices because we don't need this thing to look to have a lot of fidelity. So let's just give it 12 vertices, and that'll look fine at the distance we're going to be seeing it. Don't worry about changing the distance and the radius or the depth and the radius because we're going to do that in edit mode. But let's move it back to the origin. Then press tab to go into edit mode, press Z so you can see what you're doing, press 3 so that you're in your side view, and then RX90 will rotate the cylinder 90 degrees so it's pointed in the same direction that we want it to be pointed in. And then I'm just going to press 3 to go back to my view and just scale it down until it's about the size of the barrel. I'm going to press G to move it over, and I'm going to press scale again to bring it down. Now, something tricky here is that we want to scale it so that it fits our concept art, but also so that it fits inside our actual gun casing. So if I press Z right now, you can see the barrel is actually clipping outside of it. So I'm going to keep scaling it until it fits inside the gun barrel. Press 3. It's now much smaller than we wanted it to be, but the only other choice would be to scale the gun out to proportions that we're not going to like. So let's just leave it like this, and then let's press Z again so you can see what you're doing. So let's press A to clear our selection, press B to grab our gun barrel here, and we're going to drag it out to where we had it there. And this is what I meant by the quads. This face, let me switch to faces view. This face here, if I right click and select it, you'll see it is a square, and all the other faces are too. The one exception are these two end caps. They're not squares, they are dodecagons. So press A to clear that. And that doesn't matter. These won't be seen. They're going to be, one's going to be inside the gun case and one's going to be in the bottom of the barrel. So we want to try and keep our geometry as squarey as possible, and that's the only exception we have on the entire weapon. So that's still pretty good. Press 3. I'm going to press, I want to grab just this face now. Actually, let me get back to vertex mode because it's easier for me. 3. Press B. Do this, and I want to extrude. Make sure I'm going flat in the Y direction out to where I want my gun to be. And then I'm going to do scale 0.5. And that will give me what I'm looking for my gun barrel. I want to do, make a rim of metal around the end of the gun barrel, and then I want to have the gun barrel be hollowed. So to do that, I'm going to go to 1, which is my front view, and I'm going to do scale 0.8. Whoop, Control Z. Sorry. Control Z. Undo that. I'm going to do, sorry, let's go back to side view. Let's do an extrude, and let's come out a little bit. There we go. And then I'll go back to our front view and do scale that, 0.8. And I want that to line up. I want it to be a flush, flat metal surface at the front of the gun. So I want this all to line up. So I'm going to press 3, and I'm going to press B to grab all of this, and I'm going to press SY0. And that just makes those two circles flat with each other. Press 3. Now I want to select just the vertices that are inside the circle. There's not a convenient way to do that on the outside, but what I can do is I can come here to the front view, 1, and do Shift Alt and right click on any of these edges, and it will just select everything from that circle that's connected to that vertex. And I want to do, go back to 3, I'm going to do extrude again, and I want to come out to the center, And then I want to drag this, with that middle ring selected, I'm going to drag it back into the gun. And it doesn't need to go all the way back, it just needs to go back some. And I'll show you what that does. So that gives us a gun that has a hollow barrel, which is nice. Now we keep fiddling with this forever, and we're probably going to keep adding stuff onto it as we do more art going forward. But it matches our concept art, and it's got all the pieces that we need. So that's great. What we do want to do, though, is start to combine these objects together to make one object. So let's create this as barrel. Okay. So to that end, what I want to do now is I want to start grabbing all these pieces and parenting them to the gun base. But an even better thing would be as if it was all one big model. With the exception of the cartridge, I'm going to leave the cartridge separate. So to do that, I'm going to go here and select everything except the cartridge in my view here. I'm going to grab the barrel and hold down Control and click on the cartridge. I don't want to do that. I'm going to hold down Shift and, hold down Shift and click on everything except the cartridge and not the old weapon, and do Control J. And this is going to be now called my Neutron Blaster. Cool. So that's my weapon. One thing we can do for the barrel to make it look a little less polygony is we can press Tab to go into this thing, and press A to clear our selection, press Z, because now this is all one object. We've got to be a little more careful about how we select our vertices. And I want to select all the vertices, so I'm going to do Shift-Alt here for all the rings that make up our gun barrel. I'm going to do B here and B here, and now I've got the gun barrel selected. I want all of these edges to be smooth, so I'm going to click on Shading UVs, and I want the edges to be smooth, and the faces to be flat, or smooth as well. Smooth, smooth, and smooth. Now if I go back to, you'll see that it's much smoother looking. But I do want the front edges to be sharp because they're supposed to be the edge of the barrel, and I probably want this ring to be sharper too. So let's tab back in here and grab this ring by right-clicking Shift-Alt and make it sharp. And tab back out to, yeah, that looks a little better. And tab back in and right-click here and Shift-Alt, and we want this to be edges to be sharp. And right-click here, Shift-Alt, and edges to be sharp. Tab back out, and that's going to look better. Cool. So not going to look great up close, but again, it's not going to be up close very often. And we can build a more interesting looking up close version if we want to later. The cartridge I want to leave separate for now, but I do want to parent it to the blaster. So what I'm going to do to that end is I'm going to select the cartridge and then Shift right select the Neutron Blaster and do Control P and Object Keep Transform. Okay, that should work, I think. We're going to see when we get into the game. But that's our game object. In fact, let's go ahead and export it. Let's do File, Export, FBX, into our Lunar Fracture 03, Assets, My Weapons, and this is Neutron Blaster. And we're going to export that. Come back into our game. And click on My Weapons, and we should see our Neutron Blaster here. Cool. Drag it into the scene. Make sure that it's scaled correctly and the rotation is set correctly, so that's all great. We want to put it in our player's hand. So let's go to our armature, hips, spine, spine 2, spine 3, right clavicle, right upper arm, right forearm, right hand. And let's make an empty game object there called Weapon Holder. And we want to put the gun, the Neutron Blaster, in our weapon holder. So we're going to just drag it up and make it a child of weapon holder. Now it's in the wrong place, so let's set its position to 0, 0, 0, and go to the weapon holder. Now it's still not in the right orientation for our game, but it is definitely, at his hand. So if I press play now, he's carrying it, but it's all wrong. It's in the wrong orientation. It is sticking to his hand nicely, so as he moves through his animation, he's definitely still holding on to the thing. So let's pause that, and we want to rotate this so it's laying flat. But we don't want to have to do this for every weapon. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the rotation of the weapon holder itself, the empty game object we created. Then every time we plug a weapon in here, it'll automatically be rotated if we set its position and rotation to 0. The weapon's position and rotation to 0. So I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to rotate. I want to rotate locally, so we're going to rotate, and where's my? There's a place in here for me to select if my rotation is local or global, and I just don't see it right this way. There it is. Make it local. Okay. That way it will rotate with respect to the game object itself. So I'm going to rotate the weapon holder like this, and then like this, and that's getting us closer. Okay, let's move it over. And let's come back here. And look at how nicely that fits in his hand. His finger is going literally through our trigger guard. Could not be any nicer. The stock's a little bit clunky because it's offset a little bit, but now we want to get his left hand, and it's fine. It's not great because his left hand's clipping into our where our cartridge is, but we can fix that later through physics. So that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to, before I unpause or stop playing, I'm going to copy all of these settings. So I'm going to do copy component, then I'm going to uncheck play, and I'm going to click here again, paste component values. And now the gun is going to be parented to his hand correctly with the right orientation, and every other weapon we create will be parented to his hand in the same way as well. And now as when he runs, he does stuff. Let's see if that looks dippy or not. I think it's looking a little weird. His hand is in the right place, but the rotation's a little off. So let's grab the weapon holder here, and let's click rotate, and let's go down. Again, the left hand's not exactly where we want it to be. And the right hand's not really either because of the way the animation works. But again, we can fix the positioning. I just want to make sure that the gun's laying flat right now. We'll fix the positioning of the hands using a script. But that looks pretty good. And he's now carrying his big honking weapon around, and he's ready to kill some robots. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go to Blender, do File, Save As, and we want it to be in Lunar Fracture 03, and we want it to be in our assets, in My Weapons, and we want to call it Neutron Blaster. .blend. Save the Blender file. Okay, so we've done quite a lot today. So I think what I'll do is I'll stop there for this week, and next time we will unwrap the model and apply some paint to it so it looks a little more interesting than just our gray box. And then we will talk about the script for fixing where the hand placement is. So I will see you all next week. Welcome to Lunar Fracture Lesson 3. So in this session, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to import a weapon so that our player will have a weapon that he can use, and we're going to use it. We're actually going to use it as a reference to create our own weapon completely from scratch. Then we're going to go into our paint program GIMP, and we're going to paint out what we want our science fiction-y weapon to look like. And then we're going to go into Blender and actually build the thing in 3D. So, first thing we want to do is go to Assets, Import New Asset, and you'll see in your, this is the file that I sent out, Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and go into the Game Dev folder, and you'll see the Unity package that I sent out this week. Should be stored somewhere on your computer. Just click Open, and click Import, and it will import a folder called My Weapons. I want to take a look at the weapon that's in there, but let's do this in a separate scene. So let's do File, New Scene, and let's go to My Weapons, and let's just drag this thing out here. The reason that this is pink is because it's saying it can't find the texture that it needs, but that's fine. We'll just give it a texture. So drag it out here, and then click on TS Weapons Textures, and drag it straight onto the model, and it's nice and textured. Okay, so if I come over here and look at this thing, you can see that we've got an M4 with a grenade launcher on it. And I'm going to use this as the basis for our science fiction weapon to give us sort of the right scale. What I need then is a good picture of this thing so that I can look at it in GIMP clearly. So I'm going to go here. And I'm gonna, if you're ever like lost inside Unity and you can't find the game object you're looking for, you can always click on it in the hierarchy and press F, and it will bring it to the center of the hierarchy. So I'm gonna add a plane in the background to give me a good white background here. So 3D object, plane, you can pick plane or quad, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna select the directional light because it's now outside the frame of what my scene view is looking at. And then I'm gonna expand this window out a little bit so I can get a good picture of my of the gun. And then I'm going to take a screenshot of this and bring it into GIMP. And that's where we'll start painting our weapon. Okay.